Everybody ready? Thank you. Call the meeting of February 6th of the South Country Central School District Board of Education back to order. And for the purposes of the Pledge of Allegiance, would everyone please rise? And would Ms. Regina Hunt lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody. Please be seated. Just a reminder, welcome everybody. Welcome to those who are watching us live stream. Just a reminder to take notice of the emergency exits. To my right, your left, and immediately to the rear of the building. Also a reminder that the campus, the entire campus of South Country Central School District is a non-smoking campus, so there's no smoking anywhere in the building. For the purposes of the meeting, we are up to board consent for the minutes and the claims reports, items number 1 and 2, under agenda item C.
Refresh. Yeah, board refresh. Your plan is the third document on board consent.
Oh, there we are. Okay. It's items 1 through 3. Correct?
Yes.
Right. Okay. Okay, and a CSEA agreements. Okay, so those 3 items. We need a motion and a second to approve. Do we have a motion? Motion by Ms. Malin, seconded by Mr. Nix. Just checking the minutes to see if we need to pull that out, and no, we don't. Okay. All right. So we have a motion and a second for items C 1 through 3. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, are you ready to vote? You ready to vote? All those in favor, raise your hand. Thank you. Seeing all hands raised, the motion is approved unanimously. Next, we're up to communications and announcements by the superintendent.
Yes, thank you. This past Saturday, President of Police, Dr. Burgess, Mr. Small, Mr. Hogan, and Ms. Verno and I attended the 15th Regional Legislative Breakfast at Longwood. As always, it was a very interesting program where we heard from our elected officials, and we heard both local and statewide perspective on the budget and local issues. After that, I went on to Newfield High School to watch our wrestlers become league tournament champions and qualify 15 wrestlers into the county tournament that'll be this Saturday and Sunday. This is in addition to their already earned league dual meet championship, so congratulations to the boys, their families, and certainly our coaches, and good luck this weekend. Last week, I had the pleasure of kicking off Career Day at Vern W. Kritz. Took the opportunity to talk to students about careers in schools, as well as my role and career as superintendent of schools. I fielded some questions from our students, and some very interesting questions came from 5 to 8-year-olds, from how old I was to could I give my older brother more homework. So it was a great day, fun event, and it was even more fun seeing the kids dressed in career uniforms the next day when they heard from volunteers that shared their career with the kids. It was pretty cool. I'm happy to report we will be working with Bellport and Brookhaven Children's Book Festival, which will be in its 2nd year at Isabella Rossellini's farm. Last year's program included author readings, illustrated workshops, and interactions with the Center for Environmental Education and Discovery, better known as CEDE, Live Animals. Specifically, the district will be participating in the children's writing and illustration competition and their crayon collection drive. Board meeting attendees may have noticed the wonderful artwork display here at Central Office, now known as the Central Office Gallery. On Thursday, February 28th, we will be hosting a reception recognizing the artists and their work. Light refreshments will be served, and we hope you can join us. That will be 7 p.m. on Thursday. And lastly, this week we celebrate National School Counselors Week. Our high school counselors are hosting random acts of kindness activities and promoting random acts of kindness activities throughout the week. Along those lines, I and each trustee received a certificate of appreciation. It's in a manila envelope before the trustees from the counselors that reads, "We all work together for student success in celebration of National School Counselors Week. High school counselors would like to thank you for all that you do to help our students reach the stars." Thank you to the counselors and for all you do for our students and their families as well. And that is all I have.
Okay, thank you. All right, who would like to begin? We'll start with our student representative, Ms. Carly.
Thank you. I just wanted to take a moment to note that Belford's Got Talent was a great success. All of the performers did a wonderful job, and there were many new faces who showed their talent. Thank you to everyone who came out to support those students. On behalf of the Student Council, we would like to thank the Board of Education and the South Country Education Foundation for allowing us to attend the Leadership Conference, Experience and Development Work in Washington, D.C. this past weekend. It was truly an amazing opportunity that allowed us to meet with students involved in Student Council and Honor Society from 32 different states across the country, as well as students from Puerto Rico. This trip allowed us to share ideas and hear what other schools did to better their school atmosphere. Not only did we develop leadership skills, we also discovered that our school is very diverse compared to others. Another great thing we learned was that we do many things to support our community and fundraise here at Belport, which was not prevalent in some of the other districts we met with. If it would be possible for the students that attended the trip to speak more about our experience at LEAD, we would love to attend a board meeting soon to present the new programs we learned about. So if we have like a certain board meeting that would be best, I know February is a little busy, but we definitely want to come and present what we learned about. So
How long of a
Okay.
presentation?
it wouldn't be too long. I'll have to talk with them and figure out exactly
And
what.
and when are you ready?
Whenever.
They're
I
ready
didn't-
now.
Yeah.
Let's give him 48 hours to prepare, right?
We met yesterday after school to discuss everything, but we wanted to give you guys a warning first, of course.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, I'll speak with Mr. Hogan.
Okay, thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. Is that it?
Yep.
Okay. Mr. Santa?
Okay. Well, of course, I actually apologize, there's been some family issues in Murphy's Law striking in my home, and I've been missing some activities I had previously pledged that I was going to attend. But I'm keeping my fingers crossed that everything works out, everybody stays healthy for this weekend. As many of you may know, Belport High School will be performing the musical Rent on Friday evening and Saturday evening, both at 7:30. The tickets are $12. It is for mature audiences only, and I suggest you bring tissues because you will need it. It's a fabulous production. I would have to say, as I always say, the best $12 you could possibly spend to see all the wonderful talent that is what our students are able to achieve, and through their years of being in our musicals. It's a really great thing to see it all come to fruition on the stage. So again, Friday night and Saturday night at 7:30 in the high school auditorium. So hope to see many of you there. That's it for now.
Thank you. Mr. Cheney?
Yeah, a couple quick things. I kind of forgot about it until the superintendent brought it up, but I am nothing short of heartbroken over missing career day last week. I had a pretty good excuse, as my colleagues on the board know, but I think for the 7 years I've been up here, I've been dying for there to be a career day. So when my kids' school actually were the first ones to start it, I was the first one to volunteer. I was so excited. And my daughter was crushed because she's the one who asked me, but I heard it was spectacular, the pictures and everything I heard. And I think when I was originally scheduled to go in, before I had to cancel, I was talking to the teacher, and it's probably a funny conversation from the teacher's perspective because I couldn't have been more excited. I was probably more excited than the kids. But the question was, who thought of this? Because I personally think every building should be doing this at every level. I think reaching out to those in our community and our parents to learn about what they do and how they make a living can light a spark in some kids. But that's a subtle hint if you didn't get it. But yeah, I heard it was great, and the kids dressed up, and And I had some really pretty big plans for my performance, so I'm crushed. But there's always next year. But then I don't have a kid in that building, so I got to do it Frank Long next year. Well, I'm coming back next year anyway, whether they like it or not. But it was, the point I was going to make was that it came from the shared decision-making team, which I thought was great. That the, a bunch of teachers got in a room and just say, hey, this is something great to do, and put it in action. And it was great success. And I'll just say generally as a parent and board member, some of the stuff's going on in that building this year is remarkable. It really is fun to see. With that, Dr. Gianni mentioned the wrestling team, so I want to pass on my congratulations. I think I said it last week too. Dr. Gianni is probably beaming with pride. If you don't know Dr. Gianni's wrestling background, he's well known in the Huntington area. So I know he's prideful that we have a wrestling team now that's doing well. And knowing a lot of kids on the team, it's really fun to see their success. And there's a couple of kids who just didn't make the cut in some other sports. There's one kid in particular that made the basketball team, decided to wrestle, and the kid's having so much success. It's really fun to see somebody pick themselves up after not getting what they want and succeed. And again, be remiss if I know it sounds like a broken record every meeting, talk about the basketball program, but they had just a remarkable win last night against the rival in Deer Park. It was a very convincing win. I'm not sure of the math, but I read somewhere that guarantees us a share of the league. They're co-champs. I don't really get it by the math as I look at it, because their rival has one more game. So if they win we have to win. I think it's presumptuous to say we're going to beat West Islip, and I don't like to do that. Although West Islip's not exactly a great basketball program, and we beat them handily every year for a number of years. Contest still has to happen, but it's fun. And if you haven't gone out to see the basketball team, and I know I'm biased, we're a basketball family, there's something special happening there, and I really think. And it's nice. The same thing happened last year. Around this time, the season comes in and playoffs start. You start seeing families that don't have kids in the basketball program. It becomes a community event. And I think anytime that happens in any one of our sports, there's nothing better. We've seen it in football. We've seen it in volleyball. And, it's unfortunate. Football and basketball are the most popular sports, so they reap more benefits of it. But we've seen it in the volleyball program, the soccer program, and the lacrosse program. So. But there's a special group of kids led by a really special kid and a group of great coaches that have made this happen. So I hope everybody gets the opportunity to see them play. And the playoffs start next week. So you're running out of time. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Nix?
I just wanted to congratulate Student Council on the trip to DC for the Leadership Conference. I just think that's spectacular. Supporting our future leaders. That's what we're all about here, and it just brings me so much joy that you guys were so successful, and I would love to see that presentation here, so let's make sure that happens. And I know that President Felice and I have plans to go see the musical this weekend, so I hope that you'll join us there.
Bring your tissues.
Is that it, Mr. Nix?
That's it.
Okay.
I attended the Town of Brookhaven's Black History Month, where several of our students with 90 or above were honored at the program. They had a wonderful, wonderful keynote speaker. Mr. Hogan was there. Director of Guidance Justin Aridi was there also. And we had discussed maybe this keynote speaker would come and speak to teachers and staff and administration. I mean, he was just really, really powerful. So that was nice that a few of our students were honored. The Bellport Middle School is having a Black History Month celebration on February the 12th, Tuesday. I believe it starts at, 6 o'clock. Their speaker will be Councilwoman Valerie Cartwright from the 1st District. She will be speaking. Monica Martinez is also having a Black History Month celebration where she will be honoring people in the community for their leadership and service, and that will be February 21st at the Boys and Girls Club. And all are welcome to attend. And again, kudos to the Bellport High School wrestling team and to the Student Council.
Okay. And just very briefly, Dr. Gianni already mentioned that I attended with him and administration at the legislative breakfast. It is always a very informative session, very interesting this year because so many of our legislative representatives have changed this year. And I missed, if you mentioned it, our visit to the open house for the new assembly.
Oh, no, I did not.
Okay, so I'll just mention that now. Also I accompanied Dr. Gianni to an open house of our newly elected assembly person for the 3rd District, Mr. Assemblyman Joseph DeStefano. And that was on Friday the 1st, so we attended there. And Dr. Gianni was able to share much of what's going on in the district and also what's going on throughout the state that has an effect on the Assembly to educate the Assemblyman. And invited him in for a tour, which I believe is going to take place, or a visit?
Next Thursday.
Thursday, the
Yeah.
13th. And we have a similar invitation out to the newly elected Senator Monica Martinez, so hopefully that will happen
She
soon,
did
too.
connect with us. I think we're scheduled.
Okay.
Yes.
So getting our representatives up to speed with our district, as both of them would be brand new to our district.
Madam Police, can you repeat the date
Which date?
for the visits? Is that going
One
to be-
visit is the 13th of
Thank you.
February, the other one is yet to be scheduled,
Okay.
okay? And the first visit is for the Assemblyman, okay? And then also just to echo the many congratulations that went around the room to the wrestling team and to the basketball team. I've been also able to attend some of those basketball games, and the sentiments that have been shared about the community involvement is absolutely correct. So looking forward to the playoff season. And that's all I have at this point. Next, we have items for discussion, the budget presentation.
Yes, our first item for discussion is the second presentation, which covers tax levy limit and revenues. Making that presentation is Dr. Burgess. Dr. Burgess.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to round 2 of our budget presentation series. As stated, tonight is the tax levy limit and revenue overview, as we know so far. We've discussed the tax levy limit previously, so some fast facts. The 2% tax cap, it's not an actual limit. It does not actually limit a tax levy increase to just 2%. It does mean that any increase above a certain amount requires 60% of voters to approve the budget. That certain amount is called the tax levy limit and does vary by school district. It's determined by a complex 8-step formula, which I'm going to go through later on in the presentation. The rate of inflation, or 2%, whichever is lower, is just one part of the tax levy limit calculation, and that's the determinant for the rest of the formula. And that's where the phrase 2% tax cap comes from. And after a school district calculates its tax levy limit, it adds certain exclusions into that amount if they are applicable. And they allow the district to propose a tax levy that may be greater than the amount set by the quote-unquote limit without requiring a supermajority or 60% of voters. Sometimes you hear the word tax rate. We're discussing tax levy. There is a difference. The levy is the money that the district raises to operate its budget. It's one of several revenue sources. A district's tax rate is used to assess taxes needed over the entire community. That's more individualized per household and per taxpayer. The tax rate is affected by the community's assessed valuation. That's the number given to what the property or properties are worth, and base allocations, simply put, the ratio between residential and commercial properties. Based on these variables, the change in the tax rate is very different from that from the change in the tax levy. To put it in even simpler terms, projected spending is a direct function of the tax levy. What we have to raise goes directly to spending. Other revenue sources include state aid, appropriated fund balance, miscellaneous, or other revenues. And all that equals the taxpayer monies that we would collect, in addition to taxpayer monies that we would collect. And the tax rate, as I mentioned, is the individual dollar rate per hundred of assessed value of a given property used to calculate a tax bill. Some clarifications and misconceptions. Even though it's called the 2% tax cap, the allowable levy limit, or the tax levy limit, may be higher for districts due to exclusions, and the law does not cap a property owner's actual tax bill. It applies only to the total school tax levy, how much a district can raise, and not the assessed value or tax rate. The assessed value is a number that is given to us by the municipality, town of Brookhaven in this case. So the 8-step calculation at a glance, just to go through it, which we have before, some of the main factors: the tax base rule factor, Pilots, payments in lieu of taxes, these are some of the exclusion, the allowable levy growth factor, that's the CPI or lower, in this case it's 2%, that was dictated by the Office of the State Controller. Pilots that we are to expect next year, that is an estimate, any carryover, and that's what gives me my tax levy limit. Numbers wise, what did we raise last year? $60,217,689, that was the voter approved amount in May of 2018. Step 2, the tax-based growth factor. That's a number that comes from the New York State Office of Real Property Tax Services. For South Country, it was 1.088, so there is some growth that they anticipate in the district next year. So that brings my number up to a $60,747,605 base. We anticipate $8,046,080 in pilots. That's both from the town of Brookhaven and from Suffolk County, and also a small amount from the federal government from the Wartime Preserve. Subtract taxes, we don't have any exclusions, capital costs. Now, as I said, the allowable levy growth factor, the 2% or the inflation rate was determined to be 2% by the state controller. When I multiply it by the previous number, I have a $70,169,558 tax levy so far. I subtract my anticipated pilots for next year. Based on the information that I have and estimates for any sort of growth, I'm looking at a number of $7,928,873 that we will receive in payments in lieu of taxes. There are a couple of properties that are the large majority of that number. There are about 20 some odd that constitute that number, and that's what I'm looking to subtract from the formula for next year. I add any available carryover, which I don't have. That finally gives me my number of $62,240,685 as my projected tax levy limit for the 2019-20 school year. I don't have any exclusions. I don't have any court orders. Pension contribution costs, they actually were lower, and our capital cost exclusion does not exist in the district. So taking the base number, subtract from the pilots, gives me the 62 million. Translated, that's an estimated 3.36% over the 2018-19 tax levy, and this illustrates the misnomer of the 2% tax cap, because based on primarily our pilot calculations, the district would be able to levy up to 3.36% higher than the 18-19 tax levy. In real dollars, that equates to $2,022,996. This is the visual of what we would submit to OSC, the Office of the State Controller, which is basically a line by line of the formula that I just went through, the $2,022,000 and the 3.36% allowable increase. And based on the revenue numbers that we have so far, the allowable tax levy limit, as I mentioned, is the top number. The state aid, the governor's run, this is, again, this is an initial run based on the executive budget released in late January, $56,746,081. My pilot number is the 7.9 million I mentioned, and the miscellaneous revenue that I've calculated thus far is 2.25 million. The designated fund balance is a decision that's yet to be made, as are any reserve allocations. Just to remind, last year we used the retirement contribution reserve, which is the ERS reserve. We used money from the workers' comp reserve and the debt service fund, which we are required to give back to the taxpayers. And this will be the 4th year of the plan to return $600,000 per year. If you recall, several years ago, there was about 3.2 million in that reserve from unspent bond proceeds. Miscellaneous revenue, some of those items: day school tuition, health services, interest and earnings, Medicaid reimbursement, E-rate, and any sort of rental income. And it should be noted that these numbers will change throughout the budget process, particularly any amount for state aid, as the news this week has been extremely ominous, to say the least. This is the remaining school budget meeting calendar. The 23rd and 6th have already happened. The next, we'll be going over the 1,000, 5,000, and 9,000 codes, which are general support, transportation, and the benefits and debt service codes, respectively.
questions for Dr. Burgess? Yes, Mr. Chino.
So I just want to clarify one thing, and I do it every time we get to this point. And I think it's important that so the pilot payments, there is a negative impact. It's nice to get, $8 million, but you can't raise taxes, your levy based on that 8 million. So that's the negative effect, right? We might have a bigger levy at 3.35, but we can't raise taxes on 8 million of it.
That's correct.
Correct.
And based on the pilot agreement that's negotiated or discussed, they could be paying higher, they could be paying lower.
Sure.
It is not a set formula.
So, now, just a quick question. So the tax base growth went up,
Yes.
okay? Enrollments, so that's obviously tax revenues, correct?
It factors into tax revenue, yes.
Is that the lion's share of it, or I'm just curious to see, I guess I was surprised to see that go up when enrollment's down, even though it's not,
Okay.
goes hand in hand, but you would think enrollment's down, less people moving into the district. That's not 100% true, but does it relate to home sales, et cetera?
There's somewhat exclusive of each other. The tax-based growth factor is really new properties, new construction, new building.
Okay, all right.
New forms of taxable revenue that they anticipate being in the district, whether it's a home,
Okay.
whether it's a business.
You hope for
Okay, so it's
business
new,
because
sure,
it's
I
a
got
better
you.
rate of return for us.
So, so this is anticipated, but that means these projects that the anticipation is coming from are already going to happen. It's not about, they're not proposing or hoping that
Correct.
something happens. Because there are 2 development projects that are floating around the district, and there could be a positive if it went through to the tax.
Yeah, but it's
Growth.
state determined, so it's not even that. It's projections.
No,
overall,
yeah, understood that,
overall
but-
economic projections. The
Okay.
state determines it. It's not like what the town of,
But
the
it,
town of Brookhaven.
no, I
zoning
understand, but I
approves.
guess what I'm getting at is
Yeah.
that, what John just whispered, is that new construction is a benefit to the tax
Yeah,
base
Yes, because-
growth.
especially
From
business.
step 1 to step 2, that growth factor, mind you, last year our growth factor was 0. They said nothing was being introduced.
Correct,
to
and
the
that's why,
district.
yes.
So next year, this ORTS, Real Property Tax Services, says properties, taxable areas will be introduced. The factor that they gave, which is just under 1%, increases the initial tax base from 217 to 747, which is about $530,000.
Gotcha. So, and again, that's just another reason about how pilots, at some point, have a negative impact, because you're not gonna get
They're
the
not-
tax
They're
growth.
not on the tax roll and may not be
And
calculated in the same
I feel like as we go every year with pilots, it needs to be refreshed, is that it's a good thing, but it's not a great thing, let's put it that way, right?
I should mention, some pilots came off, some pilots come on. This is-
Yeah, and there's always the same amount, there's one, and just the last piece real quickly, is that I'm surprised to see in the state aid governor's run, which I didn't see previously when I looked at the runs when they came out, a decrease in aid from the state projected.
Yeah.
So why, do we have an explanation?
Yes.
It's what, $500,000?
There's,
Four or five.
the foundation aid amount did increase slightly. Our
That doesn't help.
high cost and public excess cost aid, which is primarily for high cost students, special ed students, that went down because many of our students aged out.
Okay,
So when they age out, we don't receive the aid for them anymore. We have a small transportation decrease, but the majority is coming from the public and private excess cost aid lines.
okay, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Sin.
I wanted to comment, and this goes into my request for having a legislative committee. A pilot agreement is only as good as what's written into it. And so if we have with the town of Brookhaven giving pilot payments to things like public storage facilities, which bring in very few jobs, that's really not a benefit to us. If they were to give pilot payments to clean industry that would bring in high-paying jobs so that people could actually afford to live in our community, that's a win-win. So, again, a pilot payment is really only as good as the agreement that the town comes up with in our economic zone.
Let's face it,
And,
there's only one pilot payment that's worth it, which is Caithness.
Thanks be to Caithness,
Because-
I've been saying that
because-
for 10 years.
Listen, this has been a bone of contention for me since I've been here, and there's one company up there that has $3.5 billion in revenue,
Yeah.
and they're paying less taxes than a 3,000 square foot house in Brookhaven, Amway.
And minimal
So-
jobs to the
And,
community.
and not only that, and the public really needs to be aware of this stuff, in all honesty, it was a 10-year pilot payment, and it was renewed for 5 years, and I think they just filed for something else. So when you see all these buildings going up in Yaphank and everything else, you know, they're using, you know, those streets are getting plowed, the ambulance going there, the fire, they're still, you know, and especially that one company, and, you know, they didn't create all new jobs when they moved here. They moved from Islip to here, a couple miles.
One of the lines I want to just mention briefly, because I was at a conference yesterday, the state aid governors run, just to kind of elaborate a little bit, the news came Monday night before Questar, which is the state aid conference, that there was a $2.3 billion unanticipated drop, for lack of better words, in revenue December and January, which may have a dramatic effect on the budget. Dramatic in that the conversation among the colleagues from both Nassau, Suffolk, and others is that the executive budget may even be redrafted. Typically, the executive budget gets proposed, and then up till about April 1st, which is the deadline the governor has imposed for the last 7-8 years, a budget's developed and put forward. But there's now discussion that because of the drop and projected further drops, that state aid may take a turn south. That's not guaranteed, that's speculation, but if you look at the area of which that $2.3 billion drop is attributed, it's personal income tax, which is basically tax collections from residents, businesses, etc. It could be attributed to a lot of things. It could be attributed to the market crash, to the market decline at the end of the year. It could be attributed to people who are not paying because they don't live in the state anymore. But the bottom line is there is a possibility that the governor's budget may be redrafted for presentation to the Senate and the Assembly.
Which I don't remember.
That's
happening.
unprecedented.
And I've been paying
It's-
attention a
it's an
very long time.
It's an unprecedented drop. I think the last time anything this drastic happened was about
Scary.
11 years ago. But, and that came with pretty dire consequences too, unfortunately.
It may be that we will have to set our budget not knowing what our state aid is going to be. We've done that once or
We've done
twice
that.
in
We've done
my
that before. Yeah,
tenure,
we've done that
but
before.
never quite to what I'm hearing happening now.
I think in 2009 or 10, the budget was,
Yep.
the state budget was adopted in August,
Yep.
not in April.
Okay.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
It's my first one.
Sorry for the news.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, John. What else you got?
That's right here.
The next item for discussion and action is capital reserve projects for the 2019-20 school year. As mentioned at our last Board of Education meeting, administration recommends moving the Kramer Street window, door, and vestibule project forward for the board's consideration. Administration further recommends using the capital reserve fund as a funding source, which will require voter approval but would not increase the tax burden on our community. At our last meeting, Dr. Burgess reported there is currently $2.3 million in capital reserve, and the estimate for Kramer Street project is about $2.3 million, just under what's in reserve. I'll offer this for the board's discussion and action. There are 2 resolutions on the agenda for the placing on the ballot and the secret required. And that is all I have.
Two resolutions?
Yeah, one goes right into the other
Oh,
one.
I see, okay. Gotcha. So, but do we need 2 separate,
Well,
Motion to
it's,
take it as
I
one.
don't think so. Council, can that be voted on one because it continues as be it further resolved?
So you have. You can do this as one resolution.
okay.
So 2 is one resolution,
Sure. So it is, it's a two-part
Yeah,
resolution.
item
It's a
F2.
two-part resolution.
It's a two, okay.
The first part of it is the SECRA, State Environmental Quality Review Act, for the two projects. Then there's the second part of the resolution is to place the two projects on the ballot for May.
Okay, very clear. Motion?
I just have one comment.
Sure.
Again, I bring this up every time we talk about the need for the completion of window projects at Frank P. Long, at Kramer. It's very disturbing that all of these were supposed to have been finished under the previous bond, and yet they were not. And because that bond never finished the things that it was supposed to do under its management. So now, to see these again, the community keeps looking at these, should have been done. So I like the direction we're in now, where our projects actually get completed correctly and the way that they are planned to get completed.
And those are only two of the many items.
Right,
that
but this
were
was supposed to have been done,
accomplished,
so half three-quarters of the district had new windows, new things, and Kramer sat there without, Frank B. sat without half.
Yeah, and I think that's important to note as people come to us and ask about the budget, and they're gonna wanna know those things. And, this is, for everybody's clarification, is a previous administration that, we're pretty much fixing a problem that they didn't address. And that's frustrating, but if somebody says, why the heck are we doing this? Well, this is why. When things don't get taken care of, you don't do it right the first time, you're gonna have to do it right the second time, or if not the third time, hopefully. So I think you bring up a really good point.
And this
And
Kramer
the
work
board-
is well
And the board this
overdone,
time around too is doing its due diligence to make sure
without a doubt.
that the oversight is taking place and the administration is responding in kind.
And I
But-
fully support this. It's long overdue. The teachers, the students, everybody at Kramer Street, this is.
It's a win-win from a cost-benefit analysis. If you have more energy-efficient windows, we're going to have less heating, less maintenance issues. So even if you don't have a kid in the school, it'll save you down the line and from a budgetary standpoint.
I think I'm right at some point.
So thank you for putting it all together as ladies properly. Dr. Burgess, we appreciate it.
All right. So we started discussion before we have the motion, but nonetheless, we need a motion and a second to approve. Motion by Ms. Malin, seconded by Ms. Hunt. Is there any further discussion on the resolution? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of the resolution, please raise your hands. Seeing all hands raised, the motion passes unanimously and will be placed on the ballot for approval.
Yes, thank you. The next item for discussion is the planned closing and liquidation of the property loss and liability reserve. Property loss and liability reserve is not legally authorized if you do not have a self-funded insurance plan, which we do not. We have New York State Insurance Reciprocal and do not need the reserve fund. Currently, the property loss and liability reserve has about $490,000 in it. Closing and liquidating the reserve would require a voter approval. If voters do approve liquidation, the funds in the reserve then will go to the general fund. The board then at that time can appropriate those funds if they so choose to the capital reserve, allowing the district to continue capital improvement projects without increasing the tax burden for the community. Capital projects for the reserve are also aidable at around 60%, so 60% monies come back to the district at a later date. This process to close the reserve would require a third proposition on the ballot on May 21st. So we're clear, Proposition 1 would be the budget, Proposition 2 would be the capital reserve project, Proposition 3 would be the property loss liability reserve liquidation. I offer this for the board's discussion. I'm not looking for action at this point. Hopefully, if the board sees this as favorable, we would prepare a resolution for our next agenda.
Well, if the district is moving in that direction, certainly I would recommend preparing the resolution for it to be placed on the agenda, and then we can have our further discussion. So we've been made aware. We'll keep it on the agenda for the next time around, and look at it again at the next meeting. Yes, Mr. Smith?
Just a thought, since we're live and sometimes people who are not familiar with these funds have jumped to conclusions as to what we're doing,
Mm-hmm.
maybe we ought to explain the process now, since it's public. Just a thought.
The process in terms of how to?
Yes, I think that might be a good idea, even though it's not on for discussion. Once it's mentioned, then everyone's starting to ask, and the rumors build, and it's all
Well,
goes
the only
into a-
reason I
Yeah.
wouldn't want to do, I
Okay.
understand your point.
Just the mechanics.
No, I understand.
Oh, okay.
Hold on.
Alright.
But in the interest of, it wasn't on the agenda item to have a full discussion. When we put it on, then the community will have due notice to either tune in live for the full explanation or can attend the meeting the next time. Not that we're trying to not address it now,
Oh,
but
I
I
know.
think we'd be doing
I
a
was just hoping
disservice.
to prevent having to put out fires at CVS.
Go to the East Patrick one.
Oh, no, they find me there
They
too,
find you there?
in Best Market.
I have to just call a point of order on myself. I see I missed the public commentary.
Don't think
But
you
we
have an
don't have an
agenda.
agenda item.
Right.
I just wanted to be clear on that for those who are, so there was an item for public commentary, item E1, and then I was to read public commentary announcement, but the card that we have is not agenda related. And so therefore, it will come at the end of the meeting, okay? To that point, I also want to just acknowledge that one of our students did come to me before the meeting and indicate that they were going to speak at the meeting. And it's involving a matter of personnel, and the board is prohibited from speaking about personnel matters in public. Those are executive session matters. Nevertheless, that student, Desiree, is it Fontana? Desiree Fontana did leave a copy of her speech that she had planned on stating to us today, and along with a petition that will be forwarded to the superintendent, and then therefore to the remainder of the board. The superintendent has agreed to call the student to discuss the matter, but unfortunately, I do thank you for your concern and appreciate you coming to the board meeting to be willing to speak. It's not easy to speak in public, and I admire your courage. And the superintendent will reach out to you to speak about the matter directly. Okay, and the family is here.
Will she be allowed to have an advocate with her during the conversation?
Certainly,
Okay,
certainly.
thank you.
Okay? All right, but thank you very much, Desiree. Thank you very much to
Thank you.
her grandma. Are you a relative of Desiree?
I'm the mother.
Okay, and thank you very much to her
Thank you.
mom and to her grandfather who are with her tonight.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay?
Yes, in the whole room.
All right. And you have people that were with you too?
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much to you. I hope you understand the need to refrain from discussing personnel matters in public. All right? Okay, thank you. All right, so. Item 4, the internal audit report.
Yes, the next item for discussion is our 2017-18 internal audit. Each school year, our internal auditors audit an area of focus suggested by our audit committee. That focus for 2017-18 school year was on vending machines and chaperoning. This evening, Dr. Burgess will report on the findings and recommendations from this audit. Dr. Burgess?
Thank you again. Just to kind of give some background, the district has several audits that go on throughout the year. The primary are the external or the independent audit and the internal audit. The internal audit is more of an operational process audit in which the audit committee gives direction as to areas to focus or to look into. It should be mentioned that Ms. Hunt is the Board of Education member on the audit committee and Ms. Felice attends the audit committee meetings regularly. In the 17-18 school year, which was last year, we received a report at the beginning of the summer. It was just approved by the board. It was 2 unique areas that are not typical to an internal audit, but they're actually extremely helpful because it's a part of the operation or the process that you really wouldn't look at too much but they do have to do with money and also personnel. So with that, the first area that we looked at, or the internal auditors looked at, were vending machines, because we have several in the district, and as we know, the only way to pay for them is through cash, and there's a cash collection process. To go briefly through the findings, one was that the district did not have, and did not adopt any written policies or procedures for the operation, collection of funds from vending machines on district property, and that is true, and that's a comment that we agree with. My office has developed an internal procedure, and for Dr. Gianni's committee, we'll be recommending a policy that would govern usage and collection in the district as well. Also, that there were 3 non-operational vending machines located at Belport High School, all of which were owned by the PTSA. I believe a while ago they were put in there. However, there were issues not only with the food service company, but also their operation during the day. Those machines have since been removed. They're no longer on the premise. With respect to the vending machine cash receipts, the auditors noted that commission checks were deposited in a timely manner, but they were not sent to the district in a timely manner by the vending company. 4 out of the 6 checks were received more than 2 months after the fact, and 1 was received more than 4 months. That was a clerical error on the part of the food service company who received the check from Answer Vending. That's been rectified, and each month we have been receiving it regularly, so that has been cleared up. The next area of audit, again, the audit team had to develop a plan to perform this correctly. We're chaperoning findings and recommendations. So for certain events, the district does use chaperones, staff members to assist security and to make sure that there are no issues at, say, a basketball game or at a play or whatnot. The first finding was that the district accounts for all chaperones and extra classroom faculty advisors in the same expenditure code. And that is true, and the recommendation was to break out those codes, which we will be doing in this budget cycle. The second was that the district does not have procedures for the approval of the number of chaperones assigned to each event. At the beginning of the school year, we implemented a procedure based on what the high school does for chaperoning. Now, the main areas that we use chaperones are the high school and the middle school. There is a small number of events at some of the other buildings, but there is an assignment, a rotation, and a signature procedure with respect to assigning chaperones. And also, if we have to increase or decrease the number based on the event, that's also now accompanied by a signature by the supervisor. The athletic director now requests an email for any of those who would like to serve as a chaperone. They're not selected exclusively from a list of teachers who sent an email expressing interest in acting as a chaperone. So this is a more definitive, documented procedure. There has to be something in writing saying, I am interested in chaperoning for the district for this school year. Previously, it was a little more word of mouth. It was a little loose, but now he has a file, as do all the buildings, as to who's interested and who gets assigned to what. And we do have the sheets as to the chaperoning assignments. In other words, while the AP at Belport High School does require a completed form from each teacher who would like to serve as a chaperone, which is the in-writing part that I just mentioned, these forms are discarded after the list of potential chaperones have been prepared, and we've said that they have to hold on to it in a file just as backup. Just because you received it and you put it on a spreadsheet doesn't mean you can get rid of the interest forms. The last couple, athletic chaperone payments, they did note that while 4 out of the 21 chaperones selected were not assigned to an event assigned by the athletic director, and the number of chaperones assigned to each event did not agree to the number of chaperones needed per the athletic director's planning document. And that goes back to what I just said. Some events require more and some events require less. So they may have been initially scheduled and they may have had to have more chaperones if there was a packed basketball game, more people showed up to play, or if it was a lesser attended event, some of those chaperones were told to stay home. The procedure that I've asked to be put in place is take the planning document for any game or any event. If you need to reduce or increase, cross them out, and you have to have 2 initials on it, because that's the document that we have to submit to the auditors as follow-up. The last comment was at Bellport Middle School was that they noted 2 out of the 5 events selected where the number of chaperones assigned to the event did not agree to the number of chaperones needed per the principal's planning document. That also goes hand in hand with what I just discussed. Again, any increase or decrease has to be authorized, and that teachers receiving chaperone payments were assigned to the event. They chaperoned per list provided by the senior building union representative, and they were assigned in accordance with rotation procedures. We have moved to have the building principal or his designee building administration compile and make the chaperoning assignments, since that is consistent with other building practices. So that is the 2017-18 internal audit on vending machines. Chaperoning is again, I highlighted the findings and the corrective actions by the district and my office.
Thank you, Dr. Burgess. Question?
I just have a question. So in these paragraphs where we talk about chaperoning, just to be clear, we're talking about events and athletic events. We're talking about school events and athletic events in the same paragraph.
Yes.
Okay. So now, from what you're saying, corrective action, the same procedures or similar procedures will be followed in the high school and the middle school. They'll be much more in line with each other.
Yeah, in a nutshell, the high school has a very good process in place, and using that as a model is really in the best interest as to who coordinates the assignments, who looks at the timesheets, who designates which person goes to where, and whether or not we need to increase, decrease, or keep the number the same for each chaperone, for each event, excuse me.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
And to the point that Mr. Santo raised earlier with the revenue, the reserve fund, to have a more in-depth conversation about it. So we'll put it on the agenda next month. This was on the agenda last month, but it wasn't slated for presentation. And that's why the board asked for it to be presented. And I believe it was me, but if you want to take credit for it, that's fine.
No, I have a comment on that,
Okay.
I have to comment.
But we have, but nevertheless, I do appreciate the presentation tonight, because once again, it shows the oversight that we are very diligent about. You had an additional comment, Mr. Santo?
Conservatively, this has been a topic of discussion upwards of 6 years,
Okay.
and I'm thankful that we seem to have addressed this. But as I always say, anytime you have policy or procedure, which I'm quite a fan of, it's only as good as the implementation. So I hope that we diligently review this and make certain that we dot our i's and cross our t's.
Well, certainly now that we've seen the presentation,
Yes,
we know what
of
to look
course,
for.
of
So you're on notice.
I think we gave our internal auditors some business too, now that we designed 2 new audit areas as well.
Because it was
Okay.
forever that little paragraph at the end of the audit that while the state doesn't require, and that was something that.
We can always do a little bit more.
Yes,
To
of
make
course,
sure we
that-
adequately
and
protect the taxpayers'
Thank you so
money.
much. Yes.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, Dr. Gianni, for putting that back on the agenda.
The next 2 items I'd like to discuss with the board is the budget vote and the budget brochure. First item is the time of the vote. Last school year, a trustee suggested starting the vote earlier, specifically 6 a.m. Our budget vote and election is currently scheduled to begin at 7 a.m. and end at 9 p.m. As a point of information, school districts must hold their annual meeting and election during at least 6 consecutive hours after 6 a.m., 2 hours of which must be after 6 p.m., as determined by resolution of the school board. For the board's information, adding 1 hour to the current vote schedule, making it 6 a.m. to 9 p.m., would increase costs at approximately $350, and that is personnel staying there 1 hour later.
1 hour later or coming in 1 hour
Earlier,
earlier?
I'm sorry, longer.
Yeah.
I offer this for the board's discussion.
So this was brought up last year, a work issue, those needing to get to work, and 7 o'clock is not conducive to early voting. So it's before you now to make that decision. The dollar amount is de minimis. Mr. Santos?
Just a question from logistics. Have we run this through the Board of Elections that they will be able to get the machines here and things will be set up
I
and?
believe we got our machines the night before.
All right, because also I don't know if you are aware that this year the election cycles have been changed because due to early voting. And I do know that the Board of Elections is in a scramble looking for sites in which to have elections and then realizing that the primaries in New York State are in June and then there might have to be some adjustments. So I would suggest that we do reach out to the Board of Elections because even though it may have been done a certain way in previous years, it's an entirely different ballgame this year. I'm in favor of this, but I think we should do our due diligence and make certain that it'll happen the way that we'd like it to happen, because
the way we
there are
anticipate.
many moving parts this year. And to my understanding, the Board of Elections still isn't really sure where some polling places are gonna be.
Well, and to your
So,
point,
and you know it's that's why what happened.
and
too,
also is
you know.
the early voting, initiative going to affect school boards as well with early voting?
Yeah.
We do have a process that members can vote prior to the election day by
Right.
absentee ballots
Yeah.
here.
I don't know if that's even been decided, trickle down, and that would
Yeah.
be for our council.
Yeah, we'll take a look into that.
That's, it's, again, it's,
Yeah.
there are a lot of things,
Doesn't affect
the-
the boards, school
the,
boards, yeah, that's school
um,
boards, but.
the law is
The
wonderful,
machines-
but I don't think anyone thought through the implementation of it, particularly since now it's on a shorter time span.
No, that's a point well taken, so we will have council look into it. I think, consensus-wise, we're all in agreement that the extra hour
If it could be done.
could, would be helpful, it certainly couldn't hurt, and it's not cost prohibitive. So, yes.
Thank you for remembering.
I
Because it was
also
me.
remembered allowing the Kramer parents to walk through the building, but I didn't speak to it.
Yes, so that's good, but thank you for remembering that. I mean,
So,
whether.
Can you just back up to that point?
Sure, because one of the other suggestions were Kramer parents are at a concert.
It's constant to that.
Right,
And we
okay.
don't allow them going in and out, so what we'll do is put a responder on the back door to allow them to
Go
sneak
vote,
out the
come back to
Oh.
the.
Yeah, because they'd have to
To-
go all the way around.
To
and-
that
yeah.
point, if I remember correctly, the last couple of years, we had less responders in the parking lot. I think that's a problem. Maybe I'm wrong. But especially now, if we're gonna promote people walking across a dark parking lot, because that parking lot is not very well lit, I would hope that we have, what's that?
I tried.
I would, if we can make sure that, and I'll be honest with you, I can go to a general statement, because, I can't remember what it was. One day, there was a basketball game at the same time, there was a concert, and the high school was mayhem, and there's nobody directing parking, traffic outside, and, we've seen it, and when we anticipate a large crowd in multiple events, budget vote is one of them, with having people at Kramer for the concert and the art show, et cetera. Something we really need to be mindful of.
Okay, so, check with the Board of Elections.
So why don't we have
Council
council
will look
check?
for early voting, and I'm going to bring back a resolution for you to act on this, because you do need to act.
All right.
Next item I'd like to discuss is the budget brochure and the Department of Justice investigation into the Voters' Rights Act of 1965. I know that the board has gotten client memos from counsel, who recommends all election material that are published in English and distributed to the public also be published and distributed in Spanish. This would include all public notices, ballots, brochures, and other notices. We will be preparing notices and ballots in both languages as advised. However, the board knows administration prepares a 6-page budget brochure that's distributed to the community, and I would like the board's guidance on how to proceed with that. I've outlined a couple of options here for consideration, or for just begin the dialogue. We could certainly translate the entire brochure into Spanish, making the 6-page document a 12-page document and mailing it out to the community. We could reduce the size of the brochure significantly to only include legal requirements, create an English-Spanish document, and distribute that to the community. And we could certainly place our current brochure in its entirety, both English and Spanish, on the website, so we don't need to print and mail. Or we can continue a current brochure with a message in Spanish, so that the document's available in Spanish on our website or by calling. However, council does not like that suggestion.
That was going to be my question, what does council think?
And
Okay.
absent federal government guidelines, it's unknown if that is even permissible.
Okay,
So I offer that for the board to begin a dialogue.
all right. Anybody else want? DeSanto.
This begs the question that I have been asking for several years now. Why is it that we cannot use our eSchool data to tease out the appropriate households? Because there's a tab in there that tells you whether the primary language in the home is Spanish or not, and then send those brochures. I know there's a little issue, there's an issue with bulk, but it would certainly be, I would think, less cost prohibitive than, printing everything in 2 languages and sending doubles.
But
We
then there's
cannot do that for
Yeah.
residents who do not have children in schools.
All right, so that's our issue. How do other districts address this, or do we
The
know
other
if they're
districts
out
are
of
wrestling
compliance?
with the same
Okay,
issue right now.
okay.
And many are reducing the size, the
Mhm.
ones I have spoken to. What's getting sent and distributed is being reduced and translated and sent.
Exactly what I have my hand raised, because, everybody knows I'm one for promoting everything that's positive in the district, and I love all the stuff that's in here. But at the end of the day, me personally, if I get a 6-page mailer like this, I'm not reading it. I don't know how many people are actually reading it, and it's a shame. If we're putting this all together and we're mailing it out, we're spending expense, I don't know how many people are actually reading it. So I wonder if we could look to cut down some of what's here, and then at the same time, look for another avenue to promote what's positive in our district in another means. We all know that we're much more prevalent in social media right now. Maybe there is a piece of paper in there or a notice in there to go find us on social media to find out all these wonderful things that are happening. And there's a specific link for them to go, or whatever it is. So there's all those kind of things. I think we need to be creative with how we can, at the same time of promoting all that's good here, we can eliminate some of this.
Carol and then Mrs. DeSanto.
Can we also get, and I know that until it's finished and ready, we can't know, but a cost analysis, like what does printing 6 pages look like versus 12? I know it's not gonna be double because you're already doing the mailing work, so what does that cost look like for us? Because I do think that while we can look for other methods to put it out there, not all parts of our population would be on social media or on different things. So we wanna get, like, the elderly, we wanna get everybody. So,
And our social media is missing exactly what this law is asking us to do. Our website, our Instagram is not in Spanish.
But I think the programs you can translate, Jack, you might know that. I mean, you can translate any social media platform
But-
into any language.
You're taking an extra step then for someone as opposed to presenting them with the information in their language, which I think is what.
No, and
Isn't it supposed to be
I get that,
an
but
equal
what
playing field here?
But when it comes
I
to
don't know
social
how-
media
how it
aspects,
works.
I mean, phones can
Yeah.
be placed
everything
on
can be
any
translated.
language you want it to
I
be.
think that would be something, although an attachment couldn't. But even at that, producing a digital version in a different language is much more cost effective than
Right.
than mailing.
Mailing and then mismailing.
Would we be, and if we didn't cut it down, would we be able to just include an insert or something in there that says, to get this in Spanish, call, or, and
That
I
was
know.
one of the recommendations.
That, which is, that, I didn't know if it was in the thing, yes.
Yeah.
Would
So-
that be the spirit of law?
I don't know.
That's all being
That
investigated,
extra
so,
step.
you
No,
know.
council recommends that is not.
Yeah, I don't think
I think
so.
that, my view
Because they have to
is
take an
you-
extra step to
you-
get what everyone else is
You
getting.
gotta
The same
trim,
thing
you
with
gotta trim
translate.
down what we have to the legal requirements, translate it and send it. And then you can provide all the bells and whistles on the website in both languages. That's the most efficient way, I think.
So then at this point, was there another question from you?
I was just going to say that I'm very much in favor of option 2, because I agree, I don't know how many people are, I was just going through last year's, so there's a lot of information on that. I think if we just gave them the information, who the candidates are, where to vote, all that stuff, right on one page or 2 pages, it would be a much
There's no
easier thing to
database.
digest. What?
There's-
We don't know who they are yet.
Yeah, no, there's no-
I'm not
Give
saying,
that information.
No, there
No,
is, the
that-
candidate
no, there is.
information's on there.
yes, it is on there, I just looked at it from last year.
Yeah,
I-
there's no
People-
requirement that
Yeah.
it's not on.
Yeah.
On
The
your
names,
budget.
the names are on there. Everything that's being voted on
Oh,
has to
okay.
be.
The point is, I just think it would be fiscally responsible and much easier for the public to digest if we just had the budget information, the candidates,
Gotcha, I
and,
misunderstood that.
that way we can get our message out there. And if we promote our social media on there, I would obviously be in favor of that.
Okay, so this has to stay on the agenda as well. Because you'll bring.
I'm gonna bring back some more information,
You're gonna bring us back some costs.
and maybe I'll bring you back a mock-up.
Okay,
I have just
Of
one
the
more quick
scaled
thing.
down.
sure.
So it's kind of connected, and I think we've talked about this in the past, and I don't think we can do it, but can our systems, and I know it affects, but can we send a mailing out and just offer people the option to opt into digital, you go paperless? We all get on our bills, right? At the bottom of every bill, go paperless, call us and click here. Why can't we do something like that in a mailing that says, hey, go to this website, sign up for notices and go paperless, and let people who don't want paper not get it, and people who want it can still receive it?
We're doing that with the report cards right now.
Report cards, exactly, that's probably where it came from. But why couldn't we expand it to district notices? I mean, we have,
Well, basically, most of our stuff is getting email in both languages now.
yeah, okay, but not
Not-
the budget brochure.
Right, not the budget.
So the question is, how do we expand
Or
that
the
and say,
calendar.
you know, like, if you've ever subscribed or unsubscribed to junk email, right? You get to select, I want once a week, I want none, I want every day, or I only want this topic. You know, I have to think, Scott, Superman, that there's some way of, you know, coming up with the times here on digital communications for those that want it, while not excluding those who don't want it.
Well, even if the capability wasn't there, it doesn't mean the capability cannot be added to these.
Sure. Can you deliver this legally electronically?
I think as long as you have, you know, as Senzo said, the equal access,
Mhm.
right? So as long as the messages are sent in both languages and both, regardless of which language you speak, you have an opportunity to opt out, then I think that would be permissible.
And as long as we keep very accurate records as to who opts out.
Sure. Well, that would be on the person, because they'd have to fill out a form, right?
No, but we would have to, because then if we were accused of not sending a budget brochure to someone,
Sure.
which we are legally bound to do, so we have to keep very accurate records of who opted out.
And we only have a database to maintain for our families.
Yeah, but we have the
Not our
ability to
district
mail to
residents.
everybody, is what I'm getting at. If once a year we did a mailing to everybody that's on the budget brochure, every
Oh,
household,
okay.
and said, hey, this yearly notice, do you wanna opt in or opt out? If you do, call or email or however we do it, or send this form back. Yes, please send me digital notices on everything. Please only send me whatever it is, there's a lot of different things we can do. But I do believe we can accomplish, this day and age, this can't be difficult to administer, I would think.
All right. So it'll be on the agenda again next week, next meeting. And where are
One more.
Yep.
And the final item for discussion this evening is Board of Education mini retreat. It's around this time of the school year, the board looks at their calendars and discusses the possibility of a mini retreat. So I'm gonna get that conversation started.
We made a yeoman's attempt that, in the fall, and had some dates, but then some conflicts came up, so it had to be postponed. Nevertheless, we're talking, the superintendent and myself were speaking to not do anything so formal like we've done in the past, but merely use this as an opportunity to just, to get together to talk about team building and working together with one another, and on a very, very informal basis, just so that we can, talk about those non-agenda items, non-business items, but what we would need to work together on behalf of the district as a cohesive group. Is there interest to, and we're talking about just one evening, I believe, right? Gianni?
Yes.
Just one evening for dinner, a dinner meeting. So say from 6 to 9 p.m., the most 6 to 8:30. Right?
That works for me.
Any interest?
I think that's a fabulous idea. I think it's needed. We've tried this many times to no avail, and I think we should try to hit the target this time.
Okay. All right.
I'm sorry. Someone else said I think Regina had a hand up.
I think it's a good idea, but I think the timing is not right. I mean, we're into budget season now. March is going to be heavy with budget. Then you have the vote. I think you should probably wait.
Okay.
And that's kind of what I was going to say, was that, we're about to get into minimum of 2-3 meetings a month. Personally, I don't see how I'm going to find a night that just, I'll try, but, and I don't know. I personally don't like the optics of the board going out to dinner on taxpayer dime either. Unless I'm paying my own way, I'd have a hard time with that. I guess a retreat's a little different. I understand we feed ourselves, we're there a long time, but 3 hours,
I don't mean going out to dinner.
Yeah, no, I understand, but I'm
But
just,
we would have dinner, and all the board retreats, we were.
no, and I get that, but 3 hours, I have a problem with it, that's all.
Any interest?
I think it might be a problem with logistics. I don't know how Regina feels, but we have high school seniors, and there's a whole list of extra evening events that are honestly coming up. So I would like to see this after the budget cycle, personally. I quite frankly have a second job as well, and I get out at 5:45,
All right.
4 days a week, so.
All right, we'll take it off the agenda.
Well, if we can attempt to, though, look at a date beyond that. But spring is insane in my house on a regular basis, and they added having a senior and a second job.
After the vote.
It's
After
really,
the budget vote.
yeah.
Okay.
I'd come, but you'd have to do it at midnight.
All right.
I'm up, so.
All right. All right, next item.
Yes, moving on to curriculum. Administration recommends approval of curriculum items reflected in Schedule G1 through G3.
All right, everybody has the items G1 through G3 before them. Is there a motion and a second to approve? Motion by Ms. Malin, second by Mr. Nix. Any discussion? G1 through 3. Seeing no discussion, all those in favor, please raise your hands. Thank you, put them down. Seeing all hands raised, motion G1 through 3 passes unanimously.
Moving on to personnel. Administration recommends approval of personnel changes reflected in H1 through H2 and H4 through H8.
H1.
H3 has been removed from the agenda.
Okay. So H1 through H2, and then H4 through H8. Motion and a second. Motion by Mr. Nix, seconded by Ms. Malin. Discussion. Seeing no discussion, all those in favor raise your hand. Thank you, please put them down. Seeing all hands raised, the motion passes unanimously.
And moving
next.
on to business, administration recommends approval of business items reflected in schedules I1 through I8.
Okay, we need a motion and a second. Motion by Ms. Hunt, second by Mr. Nix. I1 through I8. Any discussion? Discussion?
Actually, just a comment, happy to see once again the South Country Education Foundation support a lot of the wonderful things that happen in our district. So we are very fortunate to have such a wonderful organization that brings things to our students that at some points in time the board budget can't attain. So it's great to have that community support.
And to that point, Mr. Santo, you saw in our board update that we got their most recent newsletter. Their
Yes.
current president, John Lento, had to step down.
Yes.
And, but he's still going to stay on and help the committee because he's fabulous in raising money during their auction over the summer.
You moved to
And
Florida, right?
Yes,
Did I read that?
yes, he moved to Florida, but
Yeah.
he'll be back and forth. And the new president is Robin Young Rowe, so we look forward to
She's always been
working with
active,
her.
so it'd be great.
And
she's here.
Oh, there she is. Hello, congratulations.
Thank you.
You're
very welcome.
I have one quick comment.
Very short.
I just noticed it, and I'm glad that Lisa had something to say. Item 7, the establishment of a scholarship in memory of Paul Ambrose and Jason Nichols. I grew up with both of them. I didn't see this until tonight. I missed it. Jason Nichols happened to be a very close friend, but Paul and I knew each other very well also. It's a wonderful event that they raise money for at a fishing tournament in Patchogue, and I see that the person who wrote this is a resident, somebody else that I knew growing up back in the day. So thank them for that. But it's real nice to know that they were Patchogue guys. So nice to see them spreading the wealth east a little bit.
Was his name Skippy? Was his
Who?
name Skippy?
Yes, it's
Who's?
in that
Ambrose?
letter.
Oh, Paul, yeah.
It was,
Yes.
okay, that is who that was. All right. Any other comments on the number of nice donations that our school continues to get in this resolution? Were you gonna add it?
Just said I threw it.
I through 8,
Something,
yes.
yeah.
Item I 1 through 8, I know we kind of got sidetracked. Another comment? Or was that, I think we have a motion.
We
and
have a
second.
motion.
Yeah, we have a motion and a second.
I
All
don't-
those in favor, please raise your hand.
I'm very.
Thank you. Please put them down, seeing all hands raised, the motion passes unanimously. And now we're up to public commentary. Public commentary, thank you for attending the board meeting, this evening's Board of Education meeting. School community members who wish to address the board will need to complete and submit a yellow comment card to the district clerk. We have one card on file. Public commentary is 2 times during the evening, the first time for the agenda items only, the second time for any other item, agenda or non-agenda. Comments for each speaker are limited to 3 minutes. Total time for public session is limited to 30 minutes. Comments related to a personnel matter or individual students cannot be entertained in public. Public commentary is a time for the board to hear comments from the public, not a question-answer period between the board and the public. If asked, informal questions requiring short answers will be addressed. However, the board will not enter into dialogue with the speaker during public commentary. District residents who seek additional information will be guided to an administrator who will address their questions or concerns. There's additional information in Guide to Meetings. We also need to ask for addresses for these in the future. Make sure they put addresses in. What's the number of your house?
There are 2.
I'm not gonna, don't say the whole word.
2.
2, thank you. Ms. Helfine,
Yes,
you're up.
okay. Just a beginning question. The sound is terrible. Are they about, these are sound, that's where your sound is coming from, you're speaking into? It's very hard to hear
Very hard to
back
hear.
here. And I have a hearing aid, and I can see this lady is trying to hear too, so we're not getting the sound back there.
Okay.
Okay, all right.
Duly noted.
Do me a
Okay.
favor, Mr. Klein, go like this and try to speak.
So we'll
We
take-
can't hear what you hear, and sometimes if you don't know,
Well, for Dr. Gianni, it's very difficult to hear. He's kind of bending down, so I missed most of what you said.
you need to project.
Project, right, okay. I'm here just because I know this is budget time, and I'm looking at UPK And I just want to, just to request, perhaps you can answer this or not. In the budget, are you doing transportation for UPK? That was something that we thought about 2 years ago. Can you answer that question?
I will answer that question, and yes, the board has a consensus to include transportation
Oh,
for you.
thank you so much.
We
Okay.
discussed it
Yes.
a little bit the last meeting.
Very good.
But we're on track.
Okay. A question is, it just came up in a conversation I was having with someone before this meeting. Executive session by law is supposed to be, there's supposed to be minutes for that. And written minutes, so you can ask the attorney that, because if anybody wanted to, they could foil them. And it's supposed to be documented, so I don't know. That's what I hear. I know that traditionally it never happened, but it seems like it should be happening.
So if there is a vote in executive session, then there are executive session minutes.
But any conversation is.
We don't-
Let's refrain from the conversation.
We don't provide verbatim minutes at all.
I know.
That's why we always hold the votes for executive session in
No,
public.
I got that.
Yeah.
Well, no, so executive session, there's only one vote in executive session, and that's authorized under 3020A. So there is a vote that's permissible, only one vote that's permissible in executive session, and that's the preferred charges under 3020A. And
Okay,
in that case, there are minutes, but they are confidential.
so you can discuss anything? And-
No, the subjects that we enter into executive session are part of the motion, they're set forth in the motion.
Part of the motion.
Right, so when, on the motion, when you enter executive session, the subjects that you're gonna be discussing in executive session are part of the motion.
The motion, okay, because this brings me to, that really kind of ties in here. The candidates that will be running, okay, me as a voter, and I will talk to as many people as I can, I would want to know what the discussion was on Frank P. Long and closing it or not. Go back to the meeting where it was said that, and I can't use your exact words and I won't even begin to, Cheryl, it's, the board feels that we don't want to, there's, no, I don't know how you said it, no, we're not going to close the school, or the board is against it, or something to that effect. So to say, where did that discussion take place? Did it take place in executive session? That's public information, and it should have been done publicly. I know no motion was made, and technically you didn't have to, may I go on just a minute?
Just wrap it up. If you
Okay.
could, please.
And technically you didn't have to vote on it, but if I'm looking to vote for someone, I'm going to find out what their feelings were on Frank P. Long, because that is just a bone of contention in the community for sure. Okay, that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. That concludes the cards. No further cards?
Nope.
Okay. All right. Closing remarks by the board members. We'll start with Mr. Nix.
I just wanted to thank the Director of Guidance, Mr. Arini, for these nice certificates. It's really nice that the Guidance Department was thinking of us and administration during this National School Counseling Week. That's very exciting. That's being recognized. And I look forward to once again attending Dr. K's French classes for Valentine's Day for the contest.
Oh, okay.
So very excited. I got the invitation the other day, and I would never miss the opportunity to visit Dr. K for her French class.
Very well. All right, I'll save you for the next one. Okay, Mr. Santa?
I was gonna say, Mr. Nix must have a certain, what is it, je ne
Je ne
sais
sais
quoi.
quoi.
We didn't get
I was
invitations.
just asked the same question. I'm like, oh, where's my invite?
Mr. Gianni, Dr. Gianni, can you look at that?
I will,
Rest
because
of the
there
board?
was, I didn't
Former
know about it
student, former
myself.
student.
Uh-huh.
I have 4 French phrases that I know, and that, of course, being social studies teachers, that's one that we know.
That's one, and let them eat
Anyway.
cake is another one.
So, one thing I did forget to ask for, and I respectfully request this with the permission of the rest of the board, if I could get some clarification, and if anyone else would like, about the January claims audit in reference to the claims warrants from December that weren't previously recorded, and some explanations of that, because there were a few that had asterisks, and I would like to know, especially considering the amounts.
Dr. Gianni, interest.
Okay.
And I put it in the wrong place in my notes. so-
January claims order.
Yes, so specifically the 3 items that had the asterisks on them, please. Also, if I could, at some point, I guess I respectfully request that we receive an update on the current pre-K enrollment and how that number may affect our target in reference to our future grant money. And my secondary question, and actually my secondary request, would be what is going to be the comprehensive plan or even the campaign to get information out to the public about the expansion of our program to the new building. Approximately 4 years ago, there was an all-out campaign. Our then assistant superintendent, along with some of the social workers, went to the local churches, and it was the social workers who spoke Spanish, to let people in the community know about the programs. So not only would that help with enrollment with the pre-K, it might even just raise awareness of the dual language program that we have here in a segment of the community that we often find to be underserved simply because of communication. I have to be honest, I used this example previously. When I first moved to the district, and I'm a relatively aware educator from someplace else, I had no idea what happened in pre-K here in the South Country Central School District. So if you haven't lived here for a while, if you don't have an older kid, sometimes pre-K enrollment could be a little confusing. So if particularly for, again, that segment of our population that might best need some information. I also would like us to work on dispelling the current rumor in the school district. I've been getting stopped in various places, and the rumor is now that we have the new center opening, we will be doing away with Bellport Methodist. So I've informed some people that the grant includes, it must include a CBO, a community-based organization. So by having a building, in no way, shape, or form do we eliminate a community-based organization. And in fact, we really don't necessarily pick who gets the opportunity to be the community-based organization because it's based on an RFP. And so then I've explained what an RFP is. So I would hope that we can, as part of our presentations out in the public, that we explain that it's not in any way, shape, or form the sole decision of the board. The money comes from the state, it passes through us, and based on the budget, we have to make a determination. So, and also, I'm going to say this, that because we are opening up the center, it does not mean we are eliminating the half-day option. So for public notice, that again is all based on RFP. If no organization comes forward to provide a half-day, then maybe we can't. So again, a lot of it's out of our hands until number one, we know what money we get from the state. Number two, which RFPs are responded to, and then finally when we look at our final numbers. So this has been a public service announcement.
Okay.
Because I've been getting a lot of questions everywhere I go.
Okay, all right, thank you very much.
And let's see. Maybe we could put that on the rumor page. Didn't we have that, or do we still have
Oh,
that?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
can we do that?
Heard some grapevine.
Yeah.
Grapevine.
Heard it to the grapevine, sorry. Yes. All right. This is part of my ongoing issue of reflecting on our best practice.
I am always been thrilled about technology in our schools. You know, way back when I interned for the Director of Instructional Technology in another place, and I know how important it is. My question is if we can get some direct information in writing about the implementation of the Chromebooks at the high school, because I'm getting some information from various sources that it's wonderful they're there, but some of the 9th grade or 10th grade or 11th graders were never actually shown how to use them. And because some of them had not previously used Google Classroom, they're now being asked to do an 11th grade assignment, which has, you know, should have rigor to it, while also trying to figure out how to do Google Classrooms and submit it. So sometimes it's our best intention when we implement something, but if, just as we do professional development with the teachers, we need to train the students as well. So I would hope that in the future, if it can't be done this year, I would love to see us bring back a modified version of the freshman seminar we used to have. A half year in which the freshmen can come in, because we have room in our 9-period schedule, and they're trained on Naviance, they're trained on Chromebook. They're basically taken through the ins and outs of how to be a successful high school student, because it is a tough year to transition. And I really do believe that we can build success by nurturing our 9th graders and helping them through the process. You know what? I'm the mom, I already knew about Naviance, but I'm gonna pick up the phone if I don't know and I'm gonna find out. Not every parent has that opportunity or the ability to do that. If you're working 2 jobs and you don't even know what Naviance is. So we really, that would be my belief, best practice. We have these wonderful programs, let's maximize the success.
Okay.
So,
Thank
my
you.
wish list, that'll be
All
my
right.
next project.
Thank you.
And I apologize, I also forgot my glasses today, they're in the car. I think that's good for now, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chief.
Yeah, I got 2 quick things, just have my notes busy. In the spirit of what Ms. DeSanto was saying about reaching out to the community about pre-K, there's a lot we should be reaching out to the community about, specifically budget time. So we want to cut down that brochure. This is not the first time I've said this, and it's late. We need to have a community forum centered around the budget to educate people in person and showcase our school. I talk about many times, I used to go to COPEG, used to run one, and it was so brilliantly put together. And at that time, I think it was the first year I was president, and COPEG, because they had a speaker about gap elimination at the time and low wealth districts, they invited myself, the William Floyd president, the Sable president, a couple others that were in what was considered low wealth districts by the state. And they had a presenter, the superintendent at the time, I forget his name, he's since retired, was a real engaging speaker. Again, I described it before, so forgive me, but you walked in, there's artwork, there's music playing, the theater group is in the auditorium doing scenes from the play. In the gymnasium, there was stations and tables set up with all the clubs to showcase what's available to our students. And at the same time, they had broken pipes and things like that because they were going out for bond, and they want to say, this is why we need to be repaired. And then when you got up there, you heard kindergartners sing. They brought out the top 10 students of the high school class. It was a wonderful showcase for that district. And by the time you left, they had every stake. They had fire departments, they had parents, they had churches, they had everybody. And by the time they walked out there, they were ready to march to Albany to eliminate the gap elimination. It was like a really, and if you're not around long enough to understand gap elimination, it was just loss of school district financing way back when, during the recession. So it's late to put something like that together, but we really should start talking and forming committees once we know after the election and in the summer for something for next year and going forward. It should be something that has a blueprint to continue on forward, because we need to let people know we're the advocates for a district. We need to continue to get the word out, and it shouldn't happen in the aisles of CVS.
I'll just follow up with what Mr. Pacheco said and then Ms. DeSanto. In the spirit of the outreach, we do, we coin it the road show.
Yeah.
Where Dr. Gianni and myself attend the local PTAs. And that has proven to be very successful, especially last year. To the issue that we are addressing with Spanish-speaking written material, I'd like us to explore having a Spanish speaker at the road shows with us. So if we do have someone who's a non-English language person and we need to communicate, perhaps we should have a Spanish-speaking person with us at those road shows. And then I do agree with Mr. Pacini, perhaps we can do something a little more on a grander scale, not just the PTA.
In fact, the roadshow started when I went to Copic. That's what we did out of it. We never really evolved into anything else, but that was what we said, let's just go out. And I can remember sitting at Bellport Methodist with me and one other parent.
Sure.
But we did it,
Yeah.
you know?
No, I'm all for that.
Yeah,
Mrs.
just a
Santos.
point of reference, and I'm at the high school now, so I'm a bit removed. At Vern Kritz, we would have a Spanish interpreter at our
The elementary
PTA
schools always
meetings
did,
at a
yes.
regular basis, and I don't know if that practice has gone by the wayside now.
I think it has, but I can't.
I'm not there to nag, I'm
Yeah.
sorry,
No,
so
I-
that's something we
No,
ought
but
to
we
try
should
to
look
bring
into
back.
that. That's an
And
excellent
the,
point.
and the other thing is, curriculum night was a fabulous way to showcase, add the curriculum night with this financial piece where parents can go around.
Does
You
that
w-
coincide with the budget curriculum?
Well,
I'm not certain.
We
I thought that was in December.
previously did it in the fall
Yeah,
to just get the 8th grade parents kind of aware and showcase the high school.
okay.
But if we did it in the spring and then got 6th and 7th grade parents and 8th grade parents to kind of think ahead of what your kid's going to be scheduled for and add the budget piece, that's a win-win-win. That's really the way to do it. And we don't have to reinvent the wheel. I'm sure somebody has the plan for curriculum night. It could be fine-tuned, and then the added budget presentation, maybe in the auditorium, if somebody should so wish to go see that as well.
Okay.
So, and if it be a night or a day, because we used to
This was
even
a Saturday,
have.
this was a
Yeah,
Saturday morning.
We used to have the art show at the middle school, which was also something that brought a lot of people in, like, wow, look what our district can do. The high school teachers, the festival, the high school teachers would come down, the high school kids would come down, and the elementary parents and the middle school parents could see what was going on and, be invested in the district then.
I think, just not to belabor the point, but it's very complicated, school budget financing. Nobody understands it. And I can tell you, how many times I have arguments in my office. But everybody wants to talk about school taxes, but they just don't understand that such a disproportionate percentage of our budget is coming from the state compared to what it used to be 60-40. Now it's 70-30 the other way, or whatever it is. So those are some of the things that are happening. I have one other point on this. So whether anybody agrees or not, in reference to the comments from the one speaker we had tonight, I think it should be clearly stated that the board did not have a public discussion in executive session. We never do, but in relation to the decision that the board made not to close Frank P. Long, I think that needs to be clearly stated that there was not a discussion amongst the board about keeping the building open in executive session. I think we were very mindful, specifically when we have topics like that. There's a lot of discussions, and I think we do a very good job of making sure we don't discuss anything public in executive session. But when you have a hot button issue like this, it needs to be stated very clearly that we did not make a decision as a group outside of the public eye, which would have been a violation of the open meetings law.
Thank you, Mr. Pacini. Mr. Santa?
To actually add to that, and being a board member, sometimes you learn things that you didn't know, sitting in the audience as to what you can and can't do. And I think sometimes the general public doesn't even understand that if we have a community forum to let people come to speak about an issue, we have no vote on an agenda because we don't have an agenda in that respect. And I think that was almost a misnomer, that people came thinking that we were going to vote on something when we were presented with information about
half hour prior by email that what was in the report, and we had the presentation by the individual who collected the information in the report, and we shared it and discussed it in public. And that's it. So sometimes it's misinformation as to how a board functions, which can be kind of complex to understand.
Are there any other comments? Okay. Seeing no other comments, we'll take a motion to, oh, Ms. Hunt?
Well, most of this was already on the item I think it was. Thank you to those who contributed to DonorsChoose.org, which provided funding for projects in Mrs. Grello's class called Flexible Seating for Fourth Grade Success, and Mrs. Claiborne's class called I'm Through, Fun to Do. Thank you to Scott Walker and the Harbor Crab Fishing Tournament for the donation of $750 in support of the Paul Ambrose and Jason Nichols Scholarship. Thank you to the Journey Church for their donation of $500 in support Bellport Middle School Black History Program. And thank you to the South Country Education Foundation for winter funding cycle in support of 21 programs and projects in our schools.
Now, hearing no further comments, we can take a motion to adjourn. Motion by Mr. Neck, seconded by Ms. Hunt. All those in favor, raise your hand. Thank you. The meeting of the South Country School District for February 6th stands adjourned. Have a good evening. Thank you everyone for listening and for